Hi again, Rick here with another cultural index, and this one is going to be a rather hard Star Trek species to examine. You see, sometime in the age of the Klingon Second Empire, maybe around the 22nd century, Chancellor Mulga discovered new territory reigned over by a seemingly passive species, and decreed that their space be ceded to the Empire, as is the Klingon way of conquest. He amassed an armada to assault this new species' homeworld, and sent this fleet of mighty ships and glory-seeking Klingon warriors deep into that space, and they were never heard from again. The entire fleet vanished. Ever since then, the Klingons have been wary of this mysterious race, the Breen. By the year 2155, the Vulcans had learned of the Breen and decided not to prowl too close to their territory, instead focusing their attention elsewhere. In the year 2268, the Romulans made first contact with the Breen and began tentative trade discussions, but all the while they were wary, for they knew little of the Breen, and any species that can keep secrets from the Romulans was worthy of caution. Then in 2275, the Andorian Captain Agrillin Kor made contact while patrolling deep in the unexplored Alpha Quadrant with an unknown vessel also patrolling its borders. This was the Federation's first contact with the Breen, and Kor's report concluded that the Breen were polite, but the meeting had been reserved. Piecing together the evidence acquired by other species over the years, the Federation made the decision to do as the Vulcans had and leave the Breen alone. Still, the exploratory nature of Starfleet brought them into increasing proximity to the Breen, and in those still uncharted depths of space, many a skirmish would erupt between the Federation and Breen marauders. There was even suspicion that they raided and destroyed Federation outposts, although no concrete evidence was ever found. Since then, the Breen Confederacy has become another player in the political landscape of the Alpha Quadrant, but has remained impassive and unreadable as a stone. Best described as a neutral party for the most part of interstellar history, the Breen are often invited to talks and diplomatic meetings, and sometimes they accept these invitations, but little progress is made as they seem content to observe and seldom commit. It should be noted, however, that this is purely the Federation's experience with the Breen. Other species have engaged in trade with them in the past, and Ferengi in particular remain the only party to have consistent, profitable contact with the withdrawn group. There are even rumours that it was from the Breen that the Ferengi originally purchased their warp technology. Cardassia 2 claims to have an embassy on the Breen homeworld, wherever that lies. It wasn't until the Dominion War that the Breen became a true threat to Starfleet and the Federation, as they entered the war on the side of the Federation's enemy and immediately had Starfleet on the defensive. After the war was done and the Treaty of Bajor signed, the Breen retreated back into their space and resumed their prowling as if nothing happened, and Starfleet had still learned precious little about them. From what the Federation can tell, they seem to be territorial but not xenophobic. Their species often reach out to act as mercenary crews or raiders on their own, hitting targets with overwhelming aggression, then slinking back into their defended space. Although it should be noted that even such marauders are geared in the same fashion as their military wings. Such acts are officially regarded as piracy, but the culture has an unescapably warrior-like ethos to it, bound by a code of conduct. Unlike the Klingons, however, the Breen's code sees pragmatism and expediency above all else. They take slaves as a resource to put to work in their mines, and have cortical implants designed to sift through people's memories for interrogation, despite the potential permanent damage they may cause. Rescued prisoners report such instruments, as well as guards wielding neural truncheons, effectively shock batons, but ones that actively interfere with the target's nervous system and can cause permanent harm. In personal arms, they supplied their soldiers with disruptor tech of similar capabilities to Romulan weaponry, leading Starfleet to speculate on potential trades in their past or skirmishes. One such powerful weapon is the disruptor cannon, the CRM-114. In ship-to-ship combat, during the Dominion War they employed an energy-dampening weapon that was devastating to Starfleet and Klingon ships alike. Like the truncheon, it messed up a ship's EPS system and left them vulnerable. Not an honourable way to kill your enemy, but an efficient one. Some of their technology seems to have organic components, and they may have cloaking technology. It is their environmental refrigeration suits that they are most known for, however. These beige and brown padded outfits are of military origin and serve to keep the internal temperature below zero, although how cold is unknown, to provide a comfortable climate for the occupant. The mask is probably the most standout feature of the protective suit, and many have speculated on what lies underneath, and it's a commonly shared statement that no one in the Federation has ever seen a Breen. The mask has a visor that seems to be a camera with a heads-up display, and the nose cone may be a filter to intake and cool air. Biologically, we know very little on the Breen. First off, they cannot be read by empaths, and even telepaths have trouble sensing their minds, akin to issues with reading Ferengi. Another statement suggests that the Breen in fact have no blood, nor circulatory system that would be recognisable for a standard humanoid. This has been attributed to the idea that they are in fact an ammonia-based lifeform that is mostly gelatinous. As strange as it sounds, their native temperature may be so low that their chemical makeup remains solid, around minus 77 degrees C. This would help explain why no one has seen a Breen, as when their helmets are removed and their sealed environment exposed to a common humanoid temperature, they literally evaporate, leaving only skeletal remains at the most. Also, it would really smell. It is also speculated that the Breen as we see them are in fact multiple species, leading to numerous conflicting reports. Collating reports reveal potentially a dozen different species of Breen, including the Amaniri, the Fenrisal, the Paklu, the Sil-1 and the Vironat. These species would wear the standardised armour of the Breen Confederacy, with it being adapted internally for the different species. What is also known is that the Breen become pregnant at a very young age, although the reason for this is also pure speculation. It could be a biological fact, such as a far shorter lifespan, or an evolved response to a harsh environment that has a high mortality rate. The Breen language is often garbled to a humanoid ear, with an electric tone added by the mask. Other species can learn Breen, but most are unable to reproduce its harsh cadence. As for the political structure of the Breen, surprise surprise, it's still unknown. The Breen Confederacy is the given name for their galactic government, which does span several colony planets, including the frozen homeworld. As mentioned, some suspect they are multiple species unified in an interstellar alliance, but several things are discernible facts. Either way, as a unified alliance or individual species, they exist as a tribe of one. In that most positions are volunteered for by a Breen who then acts in that role until they wish to change. The motivation would therefore be duty or a sense of code of conduct among their people. This applies to their leaders too, who only serve as long as they are wanted. Such leaders are called Thots. Yes, I know, moving on. The rank seems on about par with that of a captain or higher, but seems to have political connotations too, such as a Cardassian gull or legate. The highest ranked Thot was the Breen Domo, who oversaw Confederacy-wide decisions. As many of the Federation's encounters have been military or raider-based, it is suspected that they have a strong warrior culture as a whole, and suffering does not dissuade them, whether it be their own or that inflicted upon others. Their concept of tribalism, banding under differing goals, however, would therefore explain the wide variation in encounters. But when their species acts as one, they can amass great sway in the galactic scene, such as their attack on San Francisco Earth, which was done to demoralise Starfleet and cause as much collateral damage as possible. even though the majority of the Breen fleet was destroyed, they accomplished their goal, leaving Starfleet to brand the species as a high threat level. Something the Romulans have been saying for decades. Never turn your back on a Breen. And that's about it. The Federation has been trying for decades to build a consensus on the Breen Confederacy and acquire as much intel as possible, but they still often underestimated the icy species. Or species, plural. Their unintelligible language to their mysterious appearance makes the individual a mystery, and on a larger scale, their engagement in various raids to full-on alliances in war, as well as their indiscernible diplomatic overtures, make the Confederacy's goals just as elusive. In a way, I wouldn't mind more details on the Breen to iron out some of the rumours, but I also enjoy the idea that there's a species out there that can be fairly prevalent, but the Federation doesn't know much about. I especially like that the other powers of the quadrants have a much more storied history with the Breen, and that it seems that the Breen are literally avoiding the Federation. So, thank you for watching this index on the Breen Confederacy, or what little I could scrape together, and the next one of these indexes will be on the silence and silence of Doctor Who, because I owe you one for that April Fool's I did, and I actually found out some nice stuff when I was researching potential topics. So, thanks again, and until next time, I've been Rick, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.